C234 to take the carbon tax off the farmers that feed us.
The honourable member for Calgary Shepherd.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So very quickly, I have 5 petitions to table on behalf of my constituents. The first one calls for a Blue Seal program modeled after the Red Seal program for medical professionals. The second one calls for ensuring that hate crimes are actually prosecuted in Canada when they're targeting certain religious groups. My third petition is calling for an inquiry to be called into People's Republic of China's foreign interference in our elections. The fourth petition from my constituents calls for C-50 to be abandoned. The Unjust Transition Act targets them specifically. And finally, my fifth petition calls for the Government of Canada and the Speaker specifically to give royal recommendation to C-318 so that adoptive parents and intended parents are able to better support their families. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I just want to remind members that are having conversations, so please take it outside, because you may not think that it's loud, but I have my speakers on and I can still hear the conversations happening. Presenting petition.
Ukraine is more progressive than the Conservative Party of Canada. And so, Madam Speaker, I am very concerned when I continually hear the narrative and the misinformation that's coming from the other side of the House that's led with an objective of dividing Canadians based on misinformation, based on information that is factually not true, and they will do it routinely time after time after time. We see it with Conservatives on just about every issue. Yesterday, we had a very important private member's bill before this House to establish a national food policy in schools across Canada, to develop the framework for it so that we could work with provinces to implement this. We're the only G7 country without one. There are something like 338 million children in developed countries throughout the world that have access to food in schools. We're the only country that doesn't, pretty much in the developed world. But yet Conservatives are even against that. And then they'll get up here in this House and complain and go on and on at great length about how people are suffering throughout our country, but then routinely, as every opportunity comes before them to actually do something for people, they have more interest in trying to put a division through this government, to put a division through Canadians' minds, to try to influence them, to give them power. And I think it's absolutely disgraceful that we've seen this time and time again.
Resonating with Canadians to know that this NDP Liberal government has to go. And right now, they could easily vote for the opposition motion today to axe the carbon tax, to make life more affordable for everyday Canadians who exist and who call our offices, and who will gladly put this NDP Liberal coalition out of business. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Questions in.
Why is it, Madam Speaker, that the House of Commons is green? The answer is that the first commoners met in the fields. They were overwhelmingly farmers who harvested a living from the fields of England. They were overwhelmingly taxed, though, by a greedy crown that took out of their pocket and out of their hands the bread that they had earned. As a result, they imposed upon King John in 1215 the Magna Carta, the Great Charter, which required a whole series of restrictions on the power of the crown. Most important of these, among the most important, was the Crown could not tax what the commoners had not approved. And thus began the tradition that only the House of Commons can pass a bill to raise spending or taxes, and only the House of Commons has power of the purse. That principle remains in place today. I have the rule book, O'Brien and Bosk, which you follow in your chair as you administer this chamber. And it says the Constitution Act of 1867 provided that any bill appropriating any part of the public revenue or imposing a tax or duty must originate in the House of Commons with the commoners. It follows that the same principle be that if the Commons votes to remove a tax, that tax must be removed. This House of Commons has voted for a common sense Conservative bill, C-234, to take the carbon tax off the farmers that feed us.